You mash the button.
Okay.
Got it.
So yeah, I'm going to make a note on my paper here to send her. Let's see, it's Karen and Sandra. I need to send the recording. And Sandra, I'm just making notes to me. Okay. By the way, you know, two folks sent me. I just kind of call them journal entries of the class today. Thank you for those. And what I wanted to say though is you don't really have to send me those every week. If you want to, you can. But I'd rather you do, because the class is for your edification and not for mine. I mean, I love reading those things and I will. But what I'd rather you do is journal. Keep a journal. And if you journal, if you want to journal by hand, cursive, print, writing, you can do it that way, hard copy. If you want to journal on your computer, that's fine too. And then we'll decide what to do with those at the end of the 5 weeks. I'd like to read them. It'd be great to read them, but you do not have to send them to me weekly. I'd rather have you. I think it's more, it's much more edificacious for you to keep a journal for future reference, because I think this is the class that really helps you when you graduate the diaconia program. And then if you decide to become a deacon and work with your clergy person, pastor your congregation, this is the class I think that's extremely helpful because when you work in a congregation and as you've worked in congregations as lay leaders, you're all probably lay leaders, you're going to work in one of the areas. You're going to, you know, diaconia is almsgiving, and most congregations have a social ministry program. Koinonia is well, the fellowship you have after church. That's koinonia. The fellowship you have wherever you meet in church, in congregation. If you have a book study club or whatever, that's koinonia. Kerygma is well, preaching and or presenting.
Would you repeat that again, Pastor Chip? Because it was breaking up a little bit.
It would be like preaching or proclamation, proclaiming the good news, proclaiming the gospel. Some of you may have preached before as lay leaders or taught classes. If you're teaching a class, that's kind of like kerygma. And liturgia is well, if you help with church, if you help with worship, that's liturgia. If you help with devotions, if you devote, if you do devotions in front of a class, you know, but before a class starts or a program starts, that's kind of, you know, liturgia.
Pastor Chip, can you explain this journal thing again? I mean, I guess I'm not.
Well, and you can send me. Yeah, Peggy, you did send me something today, didn't you? Yeah, because I sent a thank you back to you, and that's, to me, that's journaling. You know, that's kind of a journaling. Okay. You know, that's what it is. Oh. The two. Who's the other one that sent me something?
I did, but I don't know whether you.
Peggy, you sent me something. I sent back a thank you, and that's, you know, that's like journaling, and so you don't have to send me those every week. Just journal it. Journal, and if you want to do hard copy, that's fine. If you want to do it on your computer, that's fine. But journal every week. Journal, you know, you can do something every day, but especially every week, because you both wrote me several paragraphs, you know, which was nice. What you did is perfect. You know, what you wrote is perfect. You know, so.
Like Pastor Chip, like others on the screen here, I started after looking at the first video. I looked at the second one as well, and the third. I noticed a pattern right away, which is fine. And then I said, well, if he wants me to turn these in, that's fine too, which obviously some people went ahead and did. But now I see the point of journaling, because there's a history that's going to wave up and down through all of those 5 stages. That's going to tie in rather nicely, and I can see your intent all along.
And the meat of what we're doing really is the discussion that takes place there. That's really the meat of what we're doing, because a lot of it is Bible reading, which Bible reading is good. It's fine. It's good. And I
So
really encourage Bible reading, but the meat of what's going to take place is our conversation here, and then what you journal. So,
And then at the end of the class, that's when you want them to be
yeah,
set.
yeah. We'll figure out a way to do that. Well, you know, we'll jump over that bridge when we come to it. But yeah, keep a
Okay.
journal. Or what you did today, the 2 pieces that were sent to you today, is fine. That's good. You just don't have to send them to me every week. We'll decide
Okay.
what to do with what you write at the end of the class. So, by the way, I have read all your papers once, and they're great. You know, what you wrote tells me that the course accomplished what we wanted to accomplish, what I wanted to accomplish. And that is, when you hear something about the Old Testament, or when you read something, or when you hear it proclaimed in a homily or a sermon or a lecture or a talk, and somebody's talking about the Old Testament, making reference to the Old Testament, you kind of know where it fits, right? You kind of know where it fits. And that's what's really important, that you can fit that in the big story, you know, because we work with macrocosms and microcosms, you know, and so you can take that little microcosmic tidbit that you hear, and you can place it into the macrocosm of the big story. And that's what you basically did with your papers. And they're all very interesting to me, because they're all different. And I love that they're different, because I learned something. I'm continually taking out my phone and my Google and going to Google and looking up something. And I'd say to myself, did that really happen? Well, yeah, I guess it did really happen, you know, because you know, we forget the tiny stuff. We forget the details. But what I want you to remember kind of is the big stuff, the big kind of the big realm of thing, the way the microcosmic story goes. And that's to me what's really, really important. That's what I wanted you to get out of the OT course. So, but how I want to proceed.
Make a comment before you go on.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that Old Testament course, and making the map, I thought, did me a world of good, because I can visualize my east and my west and my north and my south, and see how they traveled.
Mhm.
And I thought it was fascinating. I learned more from making the map, I think,
Yeah.
than I did
Yeah,
writing.
the maps that were submitted were pretty cool, you know, are pretty neat. And I think every time a map was submitted, I did make a comment. I have made a comment so far about them. And yeah, they're sweet. Not required, of course, but you know, my background with Old Testament is biblical geography. So that's kind of why I had you do the maps. You certainly didn't have to do the maps, but that's kind of where I sit with Old Testament. So what
Mr. Chip, there's a housekeeping issue that I think would be
Okay,
worth raising. In your first video, maybe it was the introductory piece that is on the website. I don't remember exactly where I saw it. In terms of required books, you mentioned one called Speaking in Stories by William White, which was not in the original syllabus.
Yeah, and that's not in print anymore. Forget that book, because you may not be able to get it, but the one by Bausch is really good.
Yeah, that one I got here. So
The one by White was available through Amazon used books.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's William White. It's pretty good. But the one I'd way rather have you read is the one by Bausch. I can't remember.
okay, that just for clarification, I did not know, and obviously you did that video some time ago, so things changed.
I did the videos like in November, but I've taught the course before, and you know, when Michelle asked me to do the course, I've taught the course live before, and I had no notes left from that course because I taught it live, and so I had to go back and reproduce everything. And we recorded the stuff in November, and that was a tour de force. But the Bausch book is the one that I really want you to read. You'll get so much out of that book. You'll just be so surprised and so tickled with it. It's very, very good. Good.
I was interested that some of the stories that Bausch tells are also the very same stories that White tells.
Yeah. I think almost all the stories that Bausch tells because White's book is very brief, it's not very long. I think he does very similar, the same stories. Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, because most of that stuff is public domain. They get passed down.
Sure.
And I'm sure you've heard preachers tell some of those stories in homilies that you've heard before. What I'd like to do to begin the class is take some turns. I'd like to hear from everybody, and in relationship with diaconia and koinonia and liturgia, charisma. How? Tell me at least one way you've served in your congregation and been involved in one of those four images or biblical aspects of congregational life in your congregation. Yeah, go ahead, Peggy.
Well, I'll go first. And I'm never going to get this word, how to say it right. The one about that for worship. I started out. I'm sorry.
Yeah, liturgia. Go ahead. Yeah.
Liturgia. Yeah. I started out as a communion server, and then I took on being a worship assistant. And since I've been in the class, I've kind of taken on the roles that I can do, that a deacon would do. And I have found my happy place. I mean, it's just, it's so meaningful for me that I just love it.
And in what area, or what are you doing right now? You're helping with Eucharist?
Well, now I'm a worship assistant, so I
Oh,
read
okay.
the lessons,
Yeah.
read the prayer, and lead the creed and all
So
that.
you're a liturgical deacon, basically, is what you are.
Yeah, I guess. And it's just been the best thing that's ever happened to me.
So you're doing the A parts.
Yeah, I guess.
The A parts, right? Yeah, very good, very good. I'm glad that's meaningful for you. That's wonderful.
It is.
You know,
really
one of the things that I have done in my ministry is when people get burned out, you know, when you're serving on a committee or a council, and especially if it's a decent sized congregation, it's very easy to get burned out. It's very easy to get strung out. You know, I've always told my parishioners, you know, one of the things you need to do is stand in front of a mirror and practice saying no. Just saying no. And when somebody gets burned out and starts, you know, like I said in the last class we had on the Psalm, and starts quoting Psalm 81, and they're just in this dark place, this very, very, very dark place. What I do is suggest that they get out of doing that and instead get involved in something that will fill you back up. Get involved in a Bible study instead. Get involved in a topical study once a week, or a Bible study, or a book club in the church, or whatever can build you back up spiritually. And I think that's probably one area as a liturgical deacon that can kind of fill one up, you know, instead of drain you. Because there are things in a congregational life that will drain you, and things that will fill you up. You know? And it's good to be in a state of oscillation back and forth between civilization and the wilderness. That's what Jesus did. If you look at Jesus' life, he was continually in a state of oscillation, healthy oscillation. He was very involved in the community and ministry, and getting beat up all the time. But then, you know, he'd always withdraw. And when he withdrew either to the mountains or to the sea, right? To the mountains or the sea. And then he'd come back again and preach and teach and do miracles. And he'd get beat up again. And then he'd have to withdraw again. And his disciples would chase him, right? So it's good if you can be involved in both sides of the ministry. Peggy, you have anything else you want to add before I move on?
No, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Who's next?
I'll go.
Okay, Diane.
I think I'm more diaconia right now because of our church. We serve the poor, the homeless, food, and I kind of work alongside the Christian Service Center, you know, to help them get different things they need. We also have a bike ministry. Unless I'm reading this totally wrong, but that's where I think I fit right now.
Okay, very good. What town do you live in, or what area are you from? You're living in right now?
I go to Redeemer Lutheran Church in Winter Park,
Okay, yeah.
and you know David Ludwig.
Oh, yeah, sure. He's the musician.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. So that's good to hear that he's still there. Who's the pastor? Still?
We have got an interim pastor now. His name
All right.
is Justo Gonzalez.
Okay, who had been there? I can't remember.
Pastor Stan,
Oh, yeah. Sure.
he retired.
Oh, he retired. Okay, all right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
5 years.
We had David Ludwig in him because he's an organist, is an good organist. You know that, right?
Oh, definitely.
Before I retired, we had him come to Lutheran Church of Chupra in Seminole, where I was serving until 2013, and they did a district music conference for us, and which I put together. And it was very, very good. We had a lot of fun with that. Okay, so kind of social ministry, up and coming. What September 11th I was reading today, right, is God's work, our hands, right?
Yeah.
So that is diaconia. Yeah, exactly. Thanks for your work and your ministry in that area. That's great. And who's next?
I'll go.
I'd be good. All right, Carol.
All right. We're small. We're really small. So you can't just pick an area or things don't get done. I don't mean it's all on me, but we are all doing multiple things. So I've been writing the prayers of the week, the prayers of the
Nice.
congregation
Sweet.
for 3 years now. For the last year, I've been only doing the first and fourth Sundays, but prior to that, for 2 years, I was doing every Sunday. And I like it, to my surprise. I mean, I like writing, that's not it, but I didn't think I would be able to focus effectively. But that's one thing I am doing and benefiting from. I'm the chair of the social ministry.
Yeah, that's kind of obviously that's liturgia, but it can be also proclamation.
Sure.
Proclaiming when you're running those pieces.
Yeah. I'm the chair of the Social Ministry Commission, which means we have an AIDS partnership that is connected to the church where we serve a dinner. Our church is responsible once a month. The organization is every month. That keeps me active. I'm responsible right now for 2 people who are undergoing cancer treatments, trying to see them once a week. And if I don't see them, at least communicate. We're small. You just have to be in a number of places, and everybody is. It's certainly not just me. And
what area is your congregation? Where's your congregation?
Clearwater.
Okay, very good.
And we have an even smaller congregation, which is planning to merge with us. And the Synod, in its infinite wisdom, has a guidebook for merger, which is thicker than the old phone books. And I am working on the history of St. Paul's, which is, we're 65, 66 years old. And not that you want to detail the name of every pastor or every committee or whatever, but I'm supposed to be picking out major themes that occur and recur so that we can say who we are and have been and can explain that to St. Matthias as we join with each other.
Yeah, nice. Super. Very good. Thanks for your work. So you're involved in probably all of those 4 things, huh?
Pretty much. Yeah.
Oh, Peggy Torda,
Yes,
where's your congregation? I forgot to ask you that.
it's Hope Lutheran
Where?
in the Villages.
Okay, that's right. Diane, you're in the Orlando area, and are you still in Orange County there, Diane?
The church is in Orange County. I personally live in Seminole County.
Okay. Now, being in the arena that you work in, have you heard of Grace Medical in your area? It's a medical ministry. It's ecumenical actually, but it's based in Orlando. It's a pretty neat organization.
I have not.
Okay, I was just curious. I did an interim in Orlando a while back. I was there for about 20 months at All Saints Lutheran Church, kind of toward the airport. And I can't remember what street it's on. Who's next? Oh, John.
I'd be glad to go. You know, I'm the outlier of the group because I split time between Florida and Pennsylvania. But first, I want to say how blessed I feel, and I agree with Peggy, how blessed I feel that the Diakonia program is a good fit for me, and they've allowed us to do it online. It was always a stumbling block in the past because I couldn't find a way to make it work because it was in person. But this has been an amazing ride. I'm just going to use some generalizations here because we've been blessed with great instructors, great lessons of learning from a variety of people from a variety of disciplines. And it's just amazing what I've learned. That being said, I probably have twice as many things to say about what I've done because I have two congregations. But I have preached, as most recently, I think this passed on the 22nd of this past month. The experiences that I've had in Cape Coral at Messiah Lutheran Church, because of Diakonia, I joined the visitation team. So I'm delivering communion to shut-ins. And you know, I've always been actively involved, and I know the rest of you are great at what you do too. But you know, I'm on the finance committee. So last night I was asked to do the closing prayer, and Chip, Pastor Chip, I'm going to tell you, I stole one from you, which is the one from Martin Luther, that I'm an empty vessel. So the church council president says to me at the end of the meeting, "Why didn't you ever consider ministry?" And the answer is I did. I told him several times in my life I did, and it just even though the Holy Spirit probably was tugging at my shirt sleeves or my collar, I just didn't opt on it at that time. And it's life events. You know, things happen at different times in your life, and you make decisions based on how the dice are rolling at that particular time. So
yeah,
I told him, I said, you know, that's pretty much what I just explained. And he always comes to me up for the closing prayer. And I said to him that last night, I said, I'm going to read this one rather than give you one off the cuff, which I'm comfortable at doing. I'm not afraid to pray. So I see myself in any of these roles you talk about, koinonia, liturgica, kerygma, you know, I probably have done them all. Now I just have to find a way to write them up.
Yeah. Very good. Thanks for sharing. Who's next? Who wants to go?
I will.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm doing pretty much the same thing Peggy does at Hope Lutheran in the Villages. I do 6 o'clock on Saturday night. I tell people I'm a Seventh-day Lutheran, which gets a chuckle out of some people, but I find lately, because of my recent widowhood and widows within the congregation, that I'm doing more of the koinonia and socialization with them and talking through the same issues we all have as widows. And that's bringing me some joy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great example of koinonia. You know, support groups, you know, that's very important in the church, congregations, communities. Yeah, very good. Anything else, Peg, before we move on?
No, other than where do you put, I'm chairman of the endowment team, where do you put that?
We've done that.
That's, you know, so you're a trustee also. So I don't know where trustees would fit in. I guess trustee would kind of fit in with liturgia, you know, because liturgics is, you know, for us, like I've said before, our relationship this way, our relationships this way, which includes how we run a congregation. It includes the backstory. The back room. You're in the back room, huh? So
Yeah, we have Pastor Anna Lugo coming from the Synod in a week and a half, and hopefully we can open some doors for that.
very good. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. You're a trustee because you do what you do with your fund, and so it's you can really fit that in with liturgia. But that's where I'd put it anyway.
Okay.
Who's next?
I'll go next.
Okay, yeah, hi.
So I guess I'd say maybe the koinonia mostly because I'm on church council, well, actually I'm the council president. And we've had our pastor retired in 2018. We hired our new pastor. He started like January of 2020. So he had all of 6 weeks before COVID hit, we shut down. So that was an interesting dynamic to lead our congregation through how we were doing stuff with a new pastor who really didn't know his church. So the people in the church, we went through a lot of that, but we also have, it's financial concerns and other concerns. So there's a lot of close participation in our council meetings. I was reading that the deep close-knit participation, because we do a dwelling in the word first, where we actually get ourselves centered before we actually do our business.
Very
so
good.
that's really active. It takes a lot of time. And when you talk about the burnout, I have 6 months left. I have to come off council because I've been on 4 years. So I'm looking for something else. I mean, I do other stuff at the church as well. And then occasionally I'll be an assisting minister like Peggy does. I'll do it occasionally. Usually we have a lot of people that like to do it. So I'll fill in more or less when others aren't available. But a week ago Sunday on the 5th, when they had Synod convention and our pastor was gone, another woman and I actually we did a morning prayer service. So there was no sermon. We actually had music instead, but yeah, so I actually helped co-lead a worship service, and that was very fulfilling. So Peggy, I'm with you on what it makes you joyful to do. I get nervous when I'm in front of people, but at the same time, it's very fulfilling. So
Yeah.
I have a little liturgia and almost kerygma in there because I read the gospel and we did that. So
Very good. I'm glad you brought up that you brought up a couple of things that are interesting. When we're serving like let's say a council, and you say, oh, you have 6 months left, and you're going to fulfill that obligation. And this is the reverse of what I said before. This is the flip side of the coin. When you're doing something in a congregation or even in your community, wherever you are, and you don't feel like doing it, but you do it anyway. Like I remember when I was a kid growing up, both my parents were active in the church. They raised me in the church, and my 3 siblings. And I always heard my mother say, oh, they want me to make a pie or a cake or something for the funeral lunch or the memorial service lunch. I just don't want to do it anymore. I'm just so sick of it. I'm so tired of doing that. Let some of the younger ones do it, And she did it anyway. And see, when you do it anyway, that's true agape, because agape is not a feeling. Agape is an action. It's an action that we do. Eros is a feeling. It's romantic love. Storge is family love. It's a feeling. Philia is a feeling. It's philao, I should say. It's friendship. The kind of love we feel for a friend. So when you're actually doing ministry in a congregation or even in your community, and say you have a day where you don't feel like doing it, but you do it, that's true agape. When my wife, Miss Susan, is really, really angry with me, she loves me anyway. See, that's true, agape. So thanks for sharing that. Peggy?
My mom's favorite saying in a very similar situation to what you were saying, she said, I said, well, why do you do it, Mom? And she goes, because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I heard that growing up constantly.
Mhm. We heard Jesus say the same words in the Garden of Gethsemane, didn't we? He said, he prayed to his Father and he said, please take this cup of suffering away from me.
Nevertheless.
But he went to the cross anyway. He didn't feel like doing it. That's agape. So,
Yeah.
okay.
Can I
Yes.
take back into that just because something you said? So I also see it as like an obligation, but to do, I mean, I love my congregation, so I do it freely. But my dad used to say, and I always want to do it because I want to leave them in a place when I have to, because I'm done. I can't serve any longer. My time is. So when I come up, I want the rest of council and the church to be in a good place. Because my dad always raised me up that whenever you borrow something, use something, do something, you always leave it better than you found it. And so that's always, he set that standard. So going back to things our parents taught us, so that's kind of where I am. Sometimes it seems like a chore, but I really want to leave it in a good place because I love our congregation. So
Yeah, sweet words. Sweet words. Thank you for sharing. Yes, who's next?
Me,
Oh, I
Kathy.
think.
last but not least. My major activity at Hope Lutheran is the leader of the Stephen Ministry Program.
Oh, sweet.
And
Now,
I just love it.
Did you hear the first session when I talked about Stephen Ministry? Did you get
Yes.
that? Yeah, okay. So, if you can find a mentor, a Stephen minister, I mean, it's a phenomenal program, just phenomenal. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
I don't know what else. I mean,
Are you
that's
a
koinonia,
Stephen-
that's
Stephen leader or a teacher? Or a
Leader.
Stephen counselor? Are you a leader?
yeah, I'm the leader of our team.
Are you also a Stephen minister?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yeah, sweet. Very nice. Isn't that a great program?
It's wonderful. It really is.
I've never been a Stephen, like I said, I've never been a Stephen minister, but I was trained as a Stephen leader and went to get trained as a leader so I could do it in the congregations I served. It's a wonderful program.
There's something about when you connect heart to heart, it's just really, you feel God's presence.
Kathy, what area, where's your congregation approximately?
Hope Lutheran Villages.
Okay, and Wilma.
Holy Trinity Lutheran up in Fort Walton Beach. I'm up in the Panhandle. I'm the odd one.
Yeah, are you in the central time zone or our time zone?
I am. And I'm with you, John. I'm really glad it went online because there would have been no way up here I could have taken diaconia because there's never been any offering for it up this way. So
Very good.
My kudos to the Florida Bahamas Synod. They did a great
Yeah.
job.
yeah.
Absolutely, yes.
I have
Yeah,
a-
actually, I don't know if you're aware of it or not. Maybe some of you are, but the model of what we do here, the Diaconia program, was started in the Metro Synod in New York, and it's spread throughout the ELCA. Now, all the synods don't use the Diaconia model. I think all of our synods have some kind of a lay ministry program, lay school, a theology program. But the model that we use, the Diaconia program, was begun, I don't know how long ago, but a while back in Metro Synod of New York. And it's a model that we use here. So we're very blessed with it.
Like all those church programs, and Carol alluded to it as well, you have to find people who are committed to run it. And I know some synods don't have enough staff to put that together or enough volunteers to staff it and have teachers and so forth. Because like anything we do in church, it's a commitment. You know, your mom may not want it to make a pie, but sooner or later she might say, all right, I'll be glad to do it.
Right, that's right. And the time we have left, go ahead, what?
I have one other, I'm going to share this as a group thing because I love all you people on the screen dearly. And I admire your wisdom and advice. So my neighbor passed away, and a neighbor of long standing. He was not a member of the church, but I think his great grandfather was an Episcopal minister. his great uncle was a famous philosopher. Last name was Hartshorn, and you can look up his name under his uncle. Great uncle was a fellow named Charles who went to Harvard Divinity School. And there's religion in the family, but this particular neighbor was not practicing. So his wife says to me, "I'd like you to deliver the eulogy at graveside." And she said, I'd like you to keep it short. And I said, absolutely, I'd be glad to do it. So it put me in, but it's not going to be necessarily real religious. So I, like every good pastor, you start preparing your words and what you're going to say and find out a little bit about the person. Of course, I know this person. So then she comes up with this hymn that she would like somebody to sing, and I'm even though I might be able to carry a tune, I'm not sure I'm the best person to do it. What happens to be Psalm 91 on Eagles Wings, and since we had I'm going to use that as the reading. I'm going to use that. I figured that would be the most appropriate. Now, for the rest of you, what advice might you give me?
Tell her you can sing on Eagle's Wing a cappella. I'm just saying.
Thank you, Peggy.
If you're going to do a memorial graveside service or a funeral for somebody who's not active, the best thing you do is proclaim grace.
Yeah.
You proclaim the gospel, and it's one of the finest times. It's one of the greatest opportunities we have to proclaim the gospel at a place where people may not ever hear it. And so what a great opportunity you have,
Yes.
to stand up, proclaim Jesus' love, to these people. Yeah. So it's a phenomenal opportunity you have. Do it. Yeah.
All right. Great.
That's what you do.
Yeah, and we'll pray for you.
Thank you.
My husband used to
Carol.
say that he
Thank-
would rather do 100 funerals than one wedding.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Yeah,
The main-
nobody's there to listen to what you have to say at a wedding.
Yeah, the focus isn't going to argue with you either at a funeral.
Right.
I have a question, something I didn't mention before. I'm the person who is responsible for the development of Reconciling Works congregations, RIC congregations in our synod. And I take that as, I'm not sure where it fits. It's not exactly community. It's proclamation in a way. It certainly is koinonia, service in a way. Everybody know what RIC is?
No.
Oh, okay, back up, huh? It stands for Reconciling in Christ. The program was developed originally to find ways to include, at that time, it would have been gay and lesbian Christians in church activities. It's now, of course, it's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, Q, intersex. There's an A that I never remember, and a plus at the end, LGBTQIA plus, and the plus is whatever else you want to add to it. The primary focus is still on non-binary, sexually non-binary people, but it also now includes lots of other marginalized groups, economically, racially, language, disability, and so on. It is intended to let a congregation intentionally include everyone in the gospel. Some congregations react very well to that, some do not. We offer a training program. Our little chapter offers a training program around the state. We've done it. We have not gone to Tallahassee. They have a chapter of their own, or Fort Walton for that matter. But we have gone to Central Florida often, to the East Coast and some south and to Jacksonville, to work with a congregation that wants to know what it means to be reconciling. And I'm honestly not quite sure where to put that activity. It
Well,
is,
initially, I for certain put it in Koinonia, because my experience is those folks feel just on the outside, and they simply want to be included. They want to be included in the community, and that's personal experience that I have. But it can be other things too. It can be all of them. But initially, on the edge, it's definitely Koinonia. Now it can be all four. You know, I think it can be all four, but initially it's Koinonia.
I mean, I like the other things I do. I love being a communion assistant. I like writing the prayers. I enjoyed being council president when I was. I like the endowment. I've liked all of these things reasonably well, some of them quite well. This is a passion. There's a friend of mine who's a member up in the Spring Hill area who sat outside our church 3 weeks in a row in his car Sunday morning, afraid to come in, sure that there was a great big G on his forehead. That as soon as he walked in, somebody would say, well, you're gay, you don't belong here. And I've seen that kind of thing again and again and again, and helping congregations see their bias, because we all have bias. Ain't nobody without it. So we don't know it always, but we certainly have it. And see if they want to do something about it, to be more inclusive and to live the gospel with other people. That, I mean, that's all consuming, or could be all consuming for me. I have to watch it because it can take over your life. And I'm not ashamed of that.
Very good. Thanks for sharing. For the good of the order, how I want to use the rest of the time is I want you all to share in your life a net that you've had to leave behind in order to move forward your life. Because that was kind of the theme of the day. And share one thing. You don't have to share more than one, but share one thing, a net that you had to leave behind in order to go forward with your life.
I'll do that real fast. When I was just post-college, I had a fellowship offered to me at a major university. It's going to be a multi-year work teaching thing. It would have led me right where I wanted to go, which was a doctorate in preparing to teach university. I grappled with it and chose instead to get married and have children. And I have taught, but I've done that in the public school or the junior college. And, you know, it's decades ago. It was very difficult to leave that net behind. I could not, like Andrew, just say, okay, here I come. Couldn't do that. I struggled.
Good one. Good one. Now, if you, the great movie about that is called The Turning Point, a movie that was done way long time ago, about 1977, maybe, in that era. And it was Anne Bancroft and Shirley MacLaine. And they were a lot younger then, and they were sisters. And one of them had become a very famous ballet dancer, extremely worldwide famous. And the other one was just as good a dancer, but she decided to get married and have a family and have her own dance studio. And the epicenter of the movie is they have this fight, this brawl in this parking lot outside of this ballet hall, because they're both jealous of one another. See, the star was jealous of her sister because she would have wanted to marry and have a family, and the other sister was jealous of the star because she decided, well, maybe she should have gotten married, and she wanted to be a world star, you see. So yeah, that's such that. Now you talk about an archetype. That's an archetype. It's done all the time. Yeah, that you're living an archetype, Carol. That's just classic.
Archetypes are something I taught in high school in the AP classes, and yes, I recognize that. But you read the gospel and you read how Jesus said, "Follow me," and everybody got up and followed him. And I think, oh, God help me, I couldn't do that. I just couldn't.
That's a good one. Yeah, thanks for sharing. That's great. Next. Who's next? What net have you had to leave behind? Just one thing. Yes.
Well, I had to leave my family when my husband took a call in South Carolina. I had a daughter who was going to have my first grandchild, and she was pregnant when we left, and I left my job. And I think I said in my paper that I lost, this is 30 years ago, I lost $15,000 a year. I had to take that cut just to get a job. And today's money, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very good. Very good. Thanks. Yes. Peggy?
You know, I get, and nothing I'm gonna say compares to what Carol just shared, but it's similar to what Peg just said. When my daughter graduated from college and she moved down to Florida to do an internship, and then it turned into a career, we were all good with that. And as I said in my paper, we were happy we weren't moving to Florida. This was the last place we wanted to live because our lives were all in Ohio. I mean, we belonged to the yacht club, and my whole life was at my church there, and friends and family and so on. But when my daughter was diagnosed with lupus, everything changed. And it wasn't if we were going to move, it was how fast we could get there. And it was very hard to just cut the ties with everything we knew from our church, our families, our friends, our doctors, our everything. And that was scary. And it was very hard for me to get on board with that, even though I knew she was my first priority.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing. It's a big one. Yeah.
To leave the comfort of everything you know behind for everything you don't know.
Yeah, that's Abram and Sarah all the way. You know, certainly
Yeah.
they moved. Yeah, they moved and left everything behind. Who's next?
I'd be glad to go.
Yeah.
This is a classic because pastors probably have heard this many, many times. I was married and divorced, and I looked at religion as the sanctity of marriage as a permanent thing, and trying to let go of the first relationship was difficult, extremely difficult. And I just, when your world's falling down around you, and I wrote about this in the paper that I had, it's like saying, why is it happening to me? Why should this happen at all? This is not supposed to be in the script this way. And essentially it was coming to the realization finally of letting that go, letting let that net fall behind. And it's classic, and it's something I'm sure Pastor Chip and other pastors have heard before.
It's classic for all of us. Everybody goes through those kinds of things. It may not be a marriage. It could be a best friend. It could be somebody you thought was your friend. It could be, just there's 100,000, situations that.
Exactly.
So sure. Who's next?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay.
I'm hesitant about this. It's just, as I wrote in my paper, I had to leave several different friends behind because either somebody was telling me what to do, how to do it, when to do it, and then if I did it that way, I was doing it wrong because it wasn't anyway. And then we had my husband's grandson live with us, and he was into drugs, and he was an ex-con, which we did not know about, but he ended up stealing over $30,000 from us. And so I've kind of cut ties with all of my husband's family. And the third person is when my husband passed away. I thought he was going to be, a good friend. He's a shoulder to lean on, him and his family. And he ended up, all he wanted was money. So I feel like with all those experiences behind me and leaving what I thought were friends behind was the best thing that could have happened to me, because I have grown so much. I can stand on my own 2 feet, and I found God again at my church, and that was my saving grace.
Very good. Yeah, God found you again and again and again. I think God finds us every day.
He does.
Finds us every day, you know, and that's a good morning prayer too. God, thank you for finding me today. Indeed. Thank you for sharing. Who's next?
I'll go ahead. What comes to my mind is when my son Kevin was born, the cord was wrapped around his neck and he had insufficient oxygen. And so he is developmentally disabled. And he has been such a joy. You know, you think that it's going to be difficult, and he brings so much love and joy, and it's just changed my life forever for the good.
Yeah, very good. And so in that situation, Kathy, you had to leave behind the whole notion that the only way you could be happy is by having a normal child with 10 fingers, 10 toes, et cetera, and you discovered that it doesn't need to be that way. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. It's a son, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Does
I
your
have to say, he's
son
a-
have siblings?
Yes.
And they're close?
No.
No?
No. And she's in Texas. We're in Florida, so.
Of course, that's another story.
She's another story, yes.
Okay. Peggy?
I was just gonna comment, I know her son, and he is a tremendous young man.
Cool.
He's just
Sweet.
he's a delightful person.
Nice.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing that. Who else needs to go? Let's see, we have,
Well,
yeah,
Wilma.
And mine's nothing compared to any of theirs, but when I graduated from college, and I was working retail, and I lived in Virginia, and my family's from Pennsylvania, and I worked summers in Virginia, so I was kind of in a tight community, new friends from, junior high school. Everybody was within driving distance. It was all nice, but things were changing with the company I worked for, and a lot of people were leaving, and it wasn't a fun place to work anymore. So I ended up joining the military. So I went to Air Force. I applied to go into the Air Force, and I got picked up for school. And that was a whole different thing, because I left everything behind. My first assignment was to California. If you want to talk about moving across country from somebody who grew up on the East Coast, it was different. And in my first week there, the news was all about drive-by shootings and all this stuff happening in the town where I was going to be living. So it was a big change.
did you say Air Force?
Yes, I was in the Air Force for 22 years.
And what was your job?
Logistics.
Very good, sweet. Yeah, and where in Virginia did you live, grow up, or?
Well, my dad was Air Force, and he was at Langley in Hampton, Virginia. So I went to junior high there, and then he moved back to Pennsylvania. My dad's an Air Force chaplain / Lutheran pastor.
Yeah.
And then we moved back up to Pennsylvania, and then I went to college in Pennsylvania. But then I used to work my summers at Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, Virginia, and I worked for retail in Richmond. So I lived all in that section of Southeast Virginia. Yeah. So, and I had friends from all over there. So it was kind of like I spent a lot of my time there.
Yeah, very, very good. The reason I'm asking all those questions is because this is Koinonia.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So yeah. Anything for the good of the order before we go next week? Of course, we'll do session 2, and we'll talk about that stuff. But anything that anybody wants to say before I do a prayer benediction?
Reminder, if you're taking By What Authority, that starts next week at 1:30, Tuesday.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that. Say, John, do I have to turn this recording off or not?
When you end the meeting, it'll end on its own.
All right.
Yes.
Okay, and then what I'll do is I'll just have I've got such a great administrator. She is just top notch, sharp, way smarter than I am. And so I'm gonna just hand her my laptop tomorrow, give her the 2 emails that this has to go to, and I'm gonna say, send this out to, that's what I'm gonna do. So make it easy for me. They'll get it first thing in the morning. Okay, the Lord be with you.
And also
with
with you.
Oh,
May the Lord bless us and keep us. May the Lord make his face shine on us and be gracious unto us. May the Lord look upon us with favor and give us his peace and walk with us through the rest of this day. And we ask that you would give us a sense of gladness as we move into the evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 See you next week.
Thank you.
Take care.
Weekend.
Bye-bye now. Joy.